guys, it's Ty with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily. Out taking a walk with the dogs. Cold winter afternoon here, Salt Lake City, Utah. So, my yesterday's vlog slash podcast was about you pet what you get. Actually, it depends on what order folks put those in. That might be tomorrow's, depending on what order they put it in. Nevertheless, yesterday I talked about you pet what you get. And it got me thinking more and more about affection and the affection that we give our dogs. And so I wanted to do another little podcast about the affection that we give our dogs, because unfortunately, a lot of dog owners kind of do this wrong, and it really sets the dog up for some problems. So, a lot of people might be wondering what I'm talking about. Like, how can you give wrong affection? Or how can affection be that wrong? Well, the reality is it can. And the way that it can is, I want you to imagine that you have a child. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But let's say that you have a young child, 3 or 4-year-old kid or whatever. Now let's say that 3 or 4-year-old kid, you give an astonishing amount of praise. Come on, guys. So let's say, for example, that your kid comes downstairs in the morning for breakfast. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. You came downstairs like a champion. Kid's like, okay. And then he eats his cereal. And you're like, wow, the way that you eat that cereal is fantastic. Okay. Now, if you start this out of the blue, your kid's going to think you're nuts. I don't care how old your kid is, unless you've got a 2 or 3-year-old who already think the world revolves around them. But if you've got anything beyond that, your kid's going to think you're nuts. And your kid's going to wonder, what the heck, why are they doing this? Now, let's say that you did this over time, months, sometimes even years, where everything you are giving some crazy, mad props to your kid. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you watch TV like such a great kid for the past half hour. And everything has so much there's so much affection for everything, right? Now imagine what that would look like long term for your kid. Your kid's going to be crippled by that. And I mean that in a very literal sense. Your kid will be crippled in that he or she won't be able to function normally, because the norm for that child is to get praised for every tiny little thing. You know, that it doesn't matter what the kid did. The kid got a ton of praise and thinks that this is what the world is like. So now imagine that kid goes out into the world, and it's not like that, obviously, when he or she gets that first job, or goes off to college, or moves out and has a landlord, or whatever, right? How handicapped would that kid be if everything has constantly been affection, affection, affection? And I can't even imagine all the ways. You know, I'm trying to think of ways, and I'm sure I can't even imagine all the ways that kid would be effectively crippled from that kind of affection and attention. You know, that kid is going to get nervous when he's not getting that attention. That kid's going to expect everything to be given on a silver platter. That kid's going to expect that this is what people do. People just love me and they give me all this attention. And when that's not there, there's going to be problems. Well, here's the problem. It's the same for your dog. Because a lot of people unknowingly do this. Not necessarily through praise, although that could be a part. Because praise is a valuable component of the learning process, and affection is. But so many people that I meet for the first time are constantly needing to touch their dog. They're constantly needing to give him a treat. They're constantly needing to check in to make sure that he's happy, or to make sure that, you know, his feelings aren't hurt. They're constantly needing to check in and just engage with the dog constantly. You know, if they're on the couch, it's 100% cuddles. If they're in the bed, the dog's always in the bed. If, you know, if they're hanging out, the dog's constantly following and needing attention. And so what happens is the dog gets used to this. Now, when it's not there, when that attention and affection isn't there, the dog becomes crippled. The dog, you know, gets to be very, very nervous and anxious because shoot, I'm not getting the attention I normally get. The dog gets, we see a lot of like separation anxiety issues because the dog is so used to this, I call it a sugar rush, the sugar rush of the owner constantly giving attention, that when that sugar rush is not there, the dog loses it. The dog is, gets destructive or poops all over the place or things like that. The dog just simply, can't handle it not getting that attention. And so we teach our clients that affection should be earned, or a lot of it should. There's plenty of times to just sit there on the couch and cuddle with your dog because you love your dog. But there's other times where, we shouldn't be giving a lot of praise because the dog didn't do anything to earn that praise. And it's not about being withholding or saying I'm only gonna give you affection when you've done something good. But tons of unworked for affection will create a spoiled, rotten dog, just like it would a kid. So bear that in mind. I don't have like a formula that says touch your dog this much, give this many treats. I don't have that. It's one of those things that you kind of know it when you see it, or people from the outside know it when you see it, that you're just simply giving too much affection, too much attention, and it's damaging. So be careful.